Y'all, I got fired just 1 day shy of completing my 90-day probation period at a new job. Here's what I learned. Hey y'all, welcome back to Lifeastish, and today I'm going to be giving you a story time of how I got laid off just 1 day shy of completing my 90-day probation period at a new job. And I'm also going to be sharing some lessons that I've learned for those of you out there that might be in a similar predicament, whether you're at a new job or your existing job and you feel like you're going to get fired for some strange reason, or you've already been laid off or fired and you just can't wrap your mind around why this is happening and what lessons and messages you're supposed to take away from it. I'm going to share my story, and hopefully this can give you some insight if you're going through the same thing as me. So let's get right into this story time. All right, y'all. So in order for me to give y'all the full tea and insight, I have to give you a little bit of background, which goes back to the previous job that I was working at before this job. So I want to kind of just rewind it to the previous job so that you understand my mental, physical, and emotional space upon entering this new job and what I feel like really led up to me getting laid off and what the deeper message was behind this happening. Now, for those of you that watch my story time on how I manifested moving to LA, I actually moved to LA for this previous job that I was working at for 2.5 years. When I first got to this company, it was one of the best companies that I had ever worked for in terms of it really seeming like they valued their employees. There were a lot of work incentives, and something that was really important to me was having a healthy work-life balance. We were on a hybrid schedule where we worked 3 days in the office and 2 days from home. So there were so many things that just made the environment feel good. It was like I'm just moving to LA and everything was just rainbows and sunshine at the time. I want to say about a couple months into me working at this job, there was a change that happened at the company where somebody that I was working close with in order to do my job and manage my responsibilities ended up getting a promotion, and they kind of left me without any guidance. I'm gonna say that this was red flag number one that I kind of just swept under the rug and didn't pay any attention to. The fact that they were not communicative about this person is being promoted, here's what we need you to do, or here's what's going to happen. In the meantime, we need you to fill in. None of that happened. I was kind of just left to figure things out on my own. And I managed, I got through it, and we continue to keep staying at this company for the remainder of the next 2.5 years. As I kept working at the company over the next 2.5 years, I'll say that things started to get progressively worse. So it's not that everything was bad out the gate. It was these little things that started happening that just started adding up into this ultimate experience that I had 2.5 years later that led to me leaving the company for this new role. So some of those things were, for one, they started letting go handfuls of people at a time. And we're not talking about anybody. We're talking about people that have been employed at this company for 10, 20 plus years. And that's another big red flag when you see people that have been working at the company for a long time start leaving the company, because, you know, companies look for, or they try to be mindful of, their turnover rate. So the fact that they're turning over employees that have been working at the company for 10, 20 plus years is never a good sign. In addition to that, they were letting go of these people, but they were not backfilling any of these roles. There were a lot of employees expected to pick up the work slack of the people that they let go of, and there wasn't any additional compensation for that. And that was another reason why I ultimately decided to leave, is because I had been working at the company for 2 years or 2.5 years, and I never received a raise while working at this company. And y'all know, I was there from 2021 to 2023. Inflation was hitting heavy. This is right after pandemic. So y'all, it was just becoming increasingly difficult and uncomfortable for me to maintain my livelihood and just continue to have that comfortable work-life balance that I initially had when I first got to the company. And on top of that, they took away one of our work remote days. So we started working 4 days in the office and 1 day from home. And I was like, all right, things just started getting increasingly uncomfortable to the point that I was like, I am unhappy unhappy, I am unfulfilled, and I no longer want to continue working at this company. The final straw for me was in the beginning of 2023. They let go of my entire department. Boss, team members, they let go of everybody. And they ended up bringing on, surprisingly, a new team. And they wanted me to train this new team and essentially onboard this team to the point that they were ready to go and continue the operations of the department. And there was no compensation for that. In the month of October, which full circle moment, I ended up saying, that's it. I'm putting in job applications. It is time for me to leave this company. So before we get into this career transition and how I ultimately got laid off, I want to give you a couple tips now, things to pay attention to, things to look out for. The first thing first is pay attention to the signs, because I think a lot of times at these companies, things don't just drastically change overnight. It's more of a gradual change to where it's not alarming to you as an employee to make you feel so uncomfortable. Like I said, I felt 2 years later, right? It took 2 whole years and a half of me working at this company before I felt that uncomfortable. And it's because it's a strategy play. These companies, even when you think about society, they're not going to tell you everything at once because they understand they're managing a company and they have to keep this company under control. It's kind of a tactic that they use to where they slowly let you down little by little. Even with the incentives that they were giving us at this company, they slowly started taking those things away. And that's not something that you would really think twice about, because an incentive is really optional. An incentive is really just the cherry on top. The base layer is you doing your job and you being compensated for that role. Anything else that they do on top of that is kind of a perk to incentivize the employees to stay at the company for a long period of time. So when you start to notice these gradual shifts, and listen, every company goes through seasons of change. So it's not to say that you need to run and split at the first sight of change, but if you notice that things are not getting better and they're continue to gradually go downhill and there's no turning around after a certain period of time, then you have to start looking out for yourself, especially when those things are impacting your livelihood for one, you being able to maintain paying your bills and just also being happy, because those things really start to weigh you down and have an impact over time. And something else that I also want to say is we have intuition. I have a whole business called Intuitish where I talk about the power of intuition and trusting your inner voice. Our inner voice tells us something ain't right here. Maybe you should start polishing up your resumes. Maybe you should start getting your P's and Q's together. And we ignore our inner voice and that little gut feeling that we feel that tells us, listen, this is about to go downhill. Let's pivot and leave. We'll just wait around and stick around to see if things get better or worse. It's sad to say, but unfortunately, they only get worse. And that brings me to my tip number 2, which is don't stay in spaces longer than you need to. We tend to settle. We tend to operate out of our comfort zone. For me, I was definitely settling and operating out of my comfort zone because, for one, I promised myself that when I got to this company and when I moved to LA, that my focus was going to be working on my business Intuitish and setting myself up to ultimately replace my 9-to-5 income with my business. But fear and doubt, I let those things get to me. And ultimately, I feel like I stayed at this company longer than I needed to. The course of the 2.5 years, I tried to apply for other opportunities and exercise my skills and grow as a person within this company. When it got to the point where that no longer was happening, that should have been my that should have been my sign that it's time for you to go, girl. Tip number 3 that I have is prepare for the season of change, because the season of change will come. So what does preparing look like? Preparing looks like updating your resume. There are these little things that you can do that can still make you feel safe, especially if change is a big thing for you. And, nobody wants to go through looking for a new job. When you go through, first of all, the job hunting process is a lot, okay? It can be very stressful, very overwhelming. It is not a fun process. But at the end of the day, there are things that you can slowly do just to set yourself up for the worst case scenario. One of those things being updating your resume. In addition to updating your resume, I would recommend that you consider what other skills that you have that can potentially bring you other sources of income. Because if your entire livelihood is based on this one job, and God forbid you get laid off or fired, then what are you going to do? So while you have some sense of security and stability, even if it's not the best sense, I would recommend that you consider skills that you have that can bring you money in addition to your 9 to 5. And if you don't have any skills, then this is also the perfect time to learn skills of things that you might be interested in, but also things that are going to bring you money and things that maybe don't cost you a lot of money or time, depending on what you prefer your trade-off to be. I would also recommend looking at other benefits and incentives that your company has to offer you. So for instance, if you have a 401k, make sure that you look into your 401k, make sure all your money is there, start to kind of weigh your options out so that you have the luxury of time. Because unfortunately, when things start cutting down to the wire and you find yourself in a position where you feel like you're about to get fired or you get fired, it's too late. We can avoid the heartache and the stress and just operating out of survival mode if we prepare for the season of change. But okay, y'all, so back into this story time. So once I kind of had my final straw with the company, I was like, all right, you know what? It's time to go. I don't feel valued, appreciated by this company. I said, it's time for me to start looking for jobs. Now, I am a spiritual girly, so I pay attention to signs and synchronicities. And one of the things that I noticed with the new job that I landed is that it came in super smooth. When I say I put in the job application and within a week or so, they reached out to me and I was having my first phone interview. And I noticed that the interview process was very quick. I was consistently getting feedback from them on a weekly basis. And for me, that felt like a sign that this is the direction that I was supposed to be moving in. Something else that I was really looking forward to was trying something different. I had been in the same role for 8 years, okay? And this was a new role that also incorporated the things that I had done over the past years. So it was like there were so many things that made me feel like the stars were aligning. The pay, I got a huge pay bump up in addition to the work environment. The work environment was so much better than where I was currently working at. They also offered other incentives, very much similar to how it was when I first got to my previous company. On to this new job and how I got laid off. So I joined the new company during their peak season, which was holiday season, like it is a busy season for most companies. Everything was all fine and dandy until about 30 days later, which was the end of December. I started applying for jobs around, I want to say September, October. I got the new job in November and I was scheduled to start the Monday after Thanksgiving. So from that Monday to the end of December, everything was great. And then about January, the CEO ends up telling us we didn't hit our goal for the year and they're no longer backfilling any positions, meaning that whoever leaves the company, they are not finding anybody to replace them. What does this sound like? Like, is this not some sort of repeat cycle? Am I not stuck in the matrix? Somebody explain this to me. The ultimate thing was they ended up letting go of the head of ecom. And I was like, what the hell did I get myself? I'm sorry, but I really was. I was like, what the heck did I get myself into? Did I make the wrong decision? So at this point, I'm about 60 days into the new job and the dust is starting to settle. And I'm just really thinking about every single thing that has happened over the past 60 days of me being at this job, but also the past 2.5 years of me being at the previous job. And one of the things that came up for me is my business. And I was like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I told myself during the last job that that was going to be my last corporate job. I was not supposed to get another corporate job. My plan was after this, I am transitioning full-time into my business, and that did not happen. And I feel like that is a part of the reason why this ultimately ended up happening in terms of me getting laid off, because I did not listen to to myself. Not only that, things were not all what they cracked up to be, because for one, my commute to this new job was solid an hour and some change, both directions. And sometimes I would not be getting home until 7 o'clock at night. When I was working at my previous job, it was 7 minutes. So that was a huge adjustment for me. And not only that, it felt like it was taking away more time out of my life. The biggest hit of all, right? Because it's like, if I'm gonna be sad, at least I can wipe my tears with my money. But once the tax is taxed, I was making the same amount at the end of it. Like, my take-home pay was the same as what I was making at my previous job. So there were so many things that just were starting to add up to make me feel like I was not supposed to be here and I made the wrong decision. And on top of that, although this role wasn't completely new to me because I was doing some things that I was doing at my previous company, it was not sticking, y'all. When I tell you, I am a very organized person. I am very systematic. I take amazing notes. Even my previous boss from this job that I got laid off from, even she was like, oh yeah, you're really organized. You're really on top of it. But when I tell you, their system and processes, I could not understand it. I was having a really hard time adjusting. And I don't think my manager was in a position to where she could really give me the support that was needed in order for me to really master this role. Although they were aware that I did not have experience in this particular department, I feel like they still didn't have the proper time to nurture me, considering the state that the business was now in, to where they can't hire any more employees and they just found out that they didn't hit their goal. Although I feel like y'all have had to known for a minute now that y'all were not going to hit y'all goal. It's like, once you start seeing that it's 10 days left until year end or the end of the fiscal, and you notice like, oh yeah, there's a big gap here. Come on, y'all knew this already. But anyway, I digress. I just started feeling really stressed out, and I felt like I didn't like the employee I was showing up as in the workplace. And I was like, this is not me. I'm an exceptional worker. I'm really organized. I'm great at communicating. Listen, okay, I'm a joy to be around. I like to laugh and have a good time. And none of those things were showing through. I was so stressed out coming into work. I felt like I wasn't getting hardly anything done per day. It was taking me so long to complete one task at work. And I started shutting down. I wasn't communicating with my coworkers anymore. I felt like I wasn't able to even engage and talk because I just had to come in and get straight to work and hope that I get one thing checked off my to-do list before the end of the day. And I was like, you know what? I don't like the way I'm being represented. I need to get ahead of this thing. We would have a check-in every 30 days. So I said, before my 90-day, let me take the initiative to have a conversation with my manager and see what I can do to turn things around, feel more confident in this role, and just really nail this job opportunity and make the most of it. I contacted my manager on it was like a Friday before the weekend. I contacted her and I said, hey, on Monday morning, can we just have a meeting? I just want to go over some things with you. And she said, okay, sure, no problem. Monday morning comes and she says, oh, hey, we have a meeting this morning. And I was like, okay, no problem. And we go into the meeting and she's like, so what did you want to talk to me about? And I'm like, wait, this is that meeting? Like, no, like I initiated this meeting. I'm going to be the one to set it up. I want to make sure that I like jot down all my notes and I have everything ready to go. So I hit every point that needs to be hit. By the end of the day, I'm like, I asked her what I always ask her. Do you need me to do anything before I leave for the day? What are the most important tasks that you need me to do in the morning? She's like, oh yeah, I need you to do this, that, and the third. And then she says, oh yeah, and by the way, the HR would like to speak to you. Now, I didn't think anything of it because the HR lady is really cool. And like I said, I'm still new. So there were some things that I still needed to complete as part of my onboarding. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I go in the office and it's the HR in there and also the VP of sales in there. And they're like, I'm sorry, we have to let you go. And I was just like, honestly, I knew it. I could feel it. I knew that I wasn't performing well. And it wasn't a thing of performance. So they said that they had to let me go because the company wasn't making enough money. But I'm like, the fact that it was me and there was a girl that came in after me, I was like, I know what this is. Like, y'all just don't have proper resources and time to catch me up to speed, to bring me on board. Y'all needed somebody that was going to come in and just go, and y'all just made the wrong hiring decision. That's pretty much how I ended up getting laid off, but I want to give you some additional tips that you can take away from this and what I feel like I ultimately learned as well. All right, so the next tip is please, whatever you do not operate out of survival mode or fear, because you will never ever get what you truly want from operating out of those places. I understand firsthand how scary it can be when you have bills to pay, especially if you are on your own and you don't have family or support like me. I'm originally from New York. I was completely on a different coast. So I understand how life can put us in these predicaments to where we feel like we have to just take the next job, take the next best thing for survival. But that's the thing. You need to learn how to operate out of a thrive state where you're making decisions that are going to bring you the financial support and stability that you're looking for, but that's also going to make you happy and fulfill you. Because if you're not in a job setting that you're supposed to be in, meaning it's bringing you happiness, fulfillment, or at least a sense of stability and purpose, then it's not going to work out anyway. Either the company itself is going to work out, it's not going to work out, meaning you're going to get fired or something's going to happen, or it's not going to work out for you, meaning you're going to be unhappy, you're going to be unfulfilled. Get ahead of this thing and think about, what is it that I want? Make a list, write it down. I want to make 6 figures. I want this job. I want this level of freedom. Whatever those things are, operate out of that place versus I got to get the next job that I can take. The next tip that I have is, when something isn't for you, it just isn't for you. There is nothing that you can do to make something fit that just doesn't fit. Right? So it's like you can't fit a triangle into a circle, right? It's just certain things that just don't fit. I had all the systems and all the things to succeed at this job. For whatever reason, this work, the information was not sticking. I was not getting it. And it's not like me to not get it. So that's how I knew that I can't force this. It's just not for me. There's nothing that I'm supposed to do. This is going to happen anyway, because it's just not in alignment with the path of my life that I'm supposed to be on. My next tip is, don't have inferior complex when it comes to the employee-employer relationship. There's a little bit of inferior complex that comes with being the employee, to where you feel like, I have to prove myself to this company. I have to prove myself to my boss. I have to work extra hard and make sure I do all the right things. But you need to feel a sense of empowerment and know that this company should also be proving certain things to you. Like, one, the fact that they value you. Are you consistently getting a raise? When it comes to growth opportunities, do they have growth opportunities? And are these growth opportunities in alignment with the things that you want to do? So I think it's really important that we don't approach these jobs from an inferior complex, to where we feel like, this job is helping me to pay my bills and it's tied up to my livelihood. And if I don't have this job, I'm gonna be on the streets. No, go in there with your head held high and act like, as much as they, how does that saying go? As much as y'all know what I'm trying to say. Just walk in there like you know that you're supposed to be there and that you're a resource for them, right? Like, they need you as much as you need them. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. The last tip that I have for you is, you made the right decision. I think I went back and forth for the longest time about whether or not I made the right decision. And I kept saying, what did I really do? Like, what did I really get from this experience, right? I'm making the same amount of pay. I have to travel further. I'm taking less time out of my day to be here. There were so many things that made me feel like I didn't make the right decision. And ultimately, you did make the right decision. And I know that I did make the right decision. You're going to end up where you need to be regardless. Did I make the most optimal, best decision that I could have made by deciding to go to this opportunity? Maybe not. Did I make a decision, and did that decision ultimately lead me down the path that I was supposed to be? Yes. So I think a lot of times we feel a sense of anxiety about deciding, right? Like taking control of our lives and taking action toward a particular path, because we feel like, is this the right path or is this going to be the wrong path? You just have to trust that regardless of what path you take, you're going to end up exactly where you need to be. And I think that's just the best way to think about it, so that you don't have a sense of anxiety around making decisions. That is the end of this story time. I hope that you were able to take something away from it to apply in your personal life. Like I said, if you're in a similar situation like this, and I will see y'all in my next video. Until then, take care.